Plan Update Subcommittee is here in a quorum, and we're here to take community feedback tonight. If you are here, you've probably seen the agenda, and so I'm going to follow that agenda. After our call to order, we're going to approve the minutes. I will call for non-agenda public comment, and after we approve the minutes and take roll. And if you want to speak to non-agenda public comment, then you can raise your hand and I'll take a list. I'm not going to keep an ongoing list. I'll take a list at the beginning and we'll run through those people who have non-agenda comment. I will say that for the most part, all of the issues related to land use scenarios A and B, to mobility, to parks and recreation, and other aspects of the plan and comments related to the plan are on the agenda. And so if you have something that's not on the agenda for tonight, then that's the appropriate time at the outset. Otherwise, we will make room for as many comments throughout the evening as we possibly can. Okay? That's the idea. All right, let me ask if there are people who wish to make non-agenda public comment this evening. There are a few. Okay, and tell me your name. I'll put you on the list. Tom Mulaney. Linda Beresford. Other hands? Yes. Katerina with K? Yes. Your last name, I'm sorry? Shakbazola. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Okay. All right. Non-agenda public comment is closed, so I'll ask for that comment in just a few minutes. If you can keep it to approximately 1 minute per speaker, that will help us get to the main items on the agenda this evening. All right. So also next in the agenda is kind of an overview of the meeting itself, why we're here, and what we have in store. And I wanted to say a few words about that and kick us off. Okay. So first off, we're meeting tonight without city staff in order to continue to take feedback for the Community Plan Update Subcommittee about the Community Plan Update from the subcommittee as well as from members of the community. Right now, the City Planning Department is hard at work in completing a community discussion draft of the UC plan before the end of this month or early next. And focused on that task and lacking anything new to present, they had originally proposed to not hold a meeting this month, but Chris Nielsen, the UCPG chair, and I did not want to miss this opportunity to hear and also organize feedback for the city and for the update subcommittee in order to take comments on material that's already been presented as part of the process. I'll talk about what the city proposes in terms of a timeline in a few moments. So we plan to use this opportunity to take feedback for specific, detailed, focused comments on the plan, on what's been proposed in all manner of what has been proposed in the 4.5 years that we've been working on this, and try to organize that feedback in order to make it most effective for the city to use, but also for the subcommittee as part of our work product to understand what feedback has been taken, what feedback has been provided to the city, and what feedback has been incorporated or not. Okay? So let me say something about the process. I know that many people may be new to these meetings. It's not new to those of us who are sitting here. In fact, we've been at work on this plan update for 4.5 years. We're into our 5th year. We were promised 3 at the outset. So the process has been long. It's also been dynamic. You may know that the process of the community plan started in 2018, so we've been through 2 mayors, 3 members of city council, 3 planning directors, 3 direct project managers for this plan update, multiple planning section directors and subsection directors, urban designers, and transportation planners, not to mention new policy in the city on parks, housing, development impact fees, as well as changes at the state and local level. Throw in a global pandemic and a continuing threat of climate change, a crisis in extinction, and a housing and affordability context which threatens this city. And through all of that, the one lasting body that has been involved in this process from the very beginning and throughout it all, the one piece, the one bit of institutional memory in all of this has been the Community Plan Update Subcommittee, who sit before you. So, thank you. I didn't know that was an applause line, but thank you.
Well deserved.
So, what is the Community Plan Update Subcommittee, and who's on it? So, you heard me call the roll. You should know that this body includes members of the University Community Planning Group, which is your elected community planning group for University City, one of 42 across the city of San Diego. It includes University City residents, business representatives, including members of the real estate and biotech fields, and several of the major real estate firms which invest in and develop real estate in our community. It includes 3 set-aside representatives from UCSD, as well as from MCAS Miramar, and it includes community and stakeholder groups, including the Friends of Rose Canyon, University City Community Association, and Biocon. We are volunteers. Welcome, Jason. Come on and set up here in front. So that's the first piece to know. The second is, what is a community plan? A community plan is a document that provides a map. It provides a set of rules and expectations that should govern land use and development in an area, this community, for the next 30 years, approximately, 25 to 30 years. It includes sections with policy ideas and expectations, as well as guidelines on zoning, on mobility, which is to say transportation, bikes, pedestrian, multimodal transit, mass transit. It includes parks and recreation, open space, urban design, economic planning, public facilities, and a lot more. It does not develop real estate on its own, but rather provides guidelines, including incentives in the form of increased land values. And I will paraphrase my colleague, George Latimer, who has often noted that those increased land values represent free land for property owners who may or may not choose to redevelop their property. And I say redevelop because in University City there is almost no undeveloped privately owned land currently. So any development that will take place here in the future will be redevelopment activity. The community plan will also lay down expectations for development of parks, of mobility infrastructure, public facilities on city land, and also city streets and right-of-ways. All right, so the city will use the community plan in some of the properties that it does control, and that could include libraries as well as city streets, parks. So a community plan, I would say, is fundamentally a vision. It's about a vision for the future, about the kind of city that we want to live in, the kind of community that we want to live in, the kind of city we want to leave to the next generation. And that includes people in this room of every age, right? I've said before that a community plan is a message in a bottle, a message from this moment in time to the future, a message that will be read, and we will be measured by the message that is read and the message that we write. So why are we updating a community plan? Why are we updating it now? The current UC plan was completed in 1987. George Latimer sat on that committee and did a significant amount of the work in preparing our current community plan. That's 36 years ago. I graduated from college in 1987. And I know it doesn't seem by looking at me that was a long time ago. Rather it was. And I know that I have needed some updating in the years since then, and I think this plan also needs updating. We can read that in the process that we've seen with this plan. There have been more than 20 different amendments to the community plan, that is to say developers who have come forward to redevelop, to get a change in the plan in order to modernize and update their facilities, and most of those have taken place in the last 10 years, and that included a major biotech expansion, the largest ever approved, I think, or recommended by the University Community Planning Group in our history last week. The city is updating plans all around the city. We are not the only ones who have a community plan that is 35 or 36 years old. Some are older. And so they're about halfway through. They began this process in the mid-20 teens. But our neighboring communities, Mira Mesa, Kearney Mesa, Claremont, have undergone community plan updates. The college area is undergoing one right now. All of them include plans to propose increased opportunities for new housing. And the proposals in our package, our update package, are greater than others, but they are certainly within the ballpark. And indeed, our plan update began with a grant from SANDAG, the Regional Planning Authority, to the city, which identified in 2018 a target for our plan of approximately 20,000 to 30,000 new units of housing in the university community over the next 30 years. And the two land use scenarios that are under discussion now both meet that threshold of 20,000 to 30,000 new units. Since 2018, we've met monthly, almost monthly. That's well over 40 separate meetings to help the city craft plans for economic development, for mobility, for parks, urban design, et cetera. We started with a set of community vision statements that I think remain guideposts today that included that University City will remain a leader in economic development, in education, and healthcare in the city of San Diego. We are the city's principal economic hub. That University City would include and continue to have a vibrant mixed-use urban core in North University City, that the plan would produce a diversified housing inventory, a housing inventory that contains a broad range of housing types and costs to accommodate a variety of age groups, household sizes, compositions, tenure, and patterns of income level. Okay? Our visions included that University City would remain a center of economic activity, that it would have a safe and integrated mobility system, that it would be a sustainable community, integrated with its natural environment, with its parks and open space, that it would be sustainable in terms of climate change and helping the city meet its goals in that respect as well, that it would be a leader in green infrastructure and green urban design, green building. So that University City would remain a leader in innovation, as it has been over these last years, an innovator in sustainability, as it has been in life sciences and biotech and other fields, and education. We also made it our vision that University City would remain a good place to live, to work, and to study. So why does this matter, and to whom does it matter? So University City is, of course, one part of a larger whole, a larger city, the city of San Diego. UC is the heart of the city's most robust and dynamic economic hub. It's the core of important biotech and life sciences and increasingly high-tech economic activity. We are home to a top 20 global university. UCSD is ranked in the top 20 universities on the planet. That we have world-class hospitals here. We have the region's leading theater cluster here, world-class shopping at the UTC Mall and recreation. And the university community, as I repeatedly will mention, is perhaps the most biodiverse part of the city of San Diego, which is the most biodiverse metropolitan area in North America and one of the most biodiverse places, metropolitan areas on Earth. University City is a great place to live, to work, to get an education, and to build a family. And given all of this, it's not surprising that emotions run high about this place. Interests here are intense. There is a great deal of money at stake for some, and for others, this is the landscape of home and of meaning. UC is a focal point in our region where global capitalist real estate development meets everyday life. And so it is a place not unlike many parts of California, many places in California. It is a place like many places that are facing similar kinds of pressures, similar kinds of compromises, similar needs for balance and thoughtful and informed conversation and discussion. We should expect tonight and throughout this process to disagree. I don't know why we would not. These are important matters. They are matters important for the city, as well as for people who call this place home or a terrain of work or study. These are matters concerning the future, in which all of us have a stake. These are matters that reasonable people can disagree about. Nonetheless, I think there's no reason that we cannot disagree without being, and no reason we can't disagree without being disagreeable. I think I've got my negatives in place there. We don't need to be disagreeable even if we disagree. As a member of this community for over 15 years, I know this community in many, many facets, and I know many of you from many of those different associations, including this context here. And I know that the people who live here, who work here, who study here, in this place, you are my neighbors. And I know that you are community-oriented. You're here for that reason. I know that you are generous, that you are accomplished people. And you're also serious people. I expect us to disagree robustly, but I also expect us to do that with respect and civility for one another. And I don't know, it's not only me who expects that, but I think that we should expect that of ourselves. I want to talk for a few minutes about our timeline in the coming days, so that we can, you'll know where this is headed, and we can think about that process and how we want to be involved. So first of all, we have a slide here that I'll speak to. We are essentially here just before the release of a community discussion draft, and that is to say a document that the city is producing that would be a draft of the entire community plan. It would include a land use document or land use scenarios, options. It'll include a mobility, transportation networks, it'll include parks and open space, and a range of other features. And it is a draft. The idea is that the city will release it at the end of next week or early in April. We will have 2 to 3 weeks as a subcommittee before we will see the city present this to the UCPG at its meeting, which is the second Tuesday in the month at 6 o'clock. Is the location announced yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, location to be announced. And then we will, the following week, the third Tuesday in the month, we will hold another of these meetings, the first of 3, April, May, June, in order to take additional community feedback, make adjustments, modifications to that discussion draft. And then the UC subcommittee will vote a recommendation to take to the UC planning group, which will vote a recommendation to go forward into the process. At that point, the city will release in the summertime, July, August sometime, the city will release a draft of the community plan, and then it will undergo an environmental impact analysis. Everywhere in California, any kind of development projects, public or private, that require significant changes in land that might have a significant environmental impact undergo such a process. It's a regular part of the process. It usually takes about 3 months. There's about a 30 to 45 day period of comment in the environmental impact review, and then those comments are received by the city. The city will respond to those comments, and a final environmental impact report will be prepared, which will come out in, give or take, what they're calling late 2023, September, October or so. And then it will go to the community or to the city planning commission and undergo any additional updating. And if everything stays on schedule, it will go to the city council for a vote before the end of 2023, before the end of the year. That's their proposal. Okay? So that's what we have to look forward to. Tonight, what are we going to do? So we have several goals, and we also have a process outlined. I'm going to share those things with you, and then we'll go to the non-agenda comment, and then we'll jump in, okay, to agenda comment to talk about the university community plan in its various parts. The goal tonight is to receive and to organize also, both two things, receive and organize feedback from the update subcommittee, as well as members of the community and stakeholders, in advance of the community discussion draft that's going to come out next month. These are comments that we will share with the city planning department to help shape the discussion draft over the next 3 months. It is a draft, and these comments will go into that draft and revision process. We also plan to organize these comments in a matrix, and we have shared as part of the agenda a matrix of comments that have been received before. This is an incomplete list, but it's a start. We will be updating this with comments that have already come in. If you've written a letter to the city planning department, if you've written a letter this week, received letters this week from various organizations, all of those comments will be included here. If you make a verbal comment tonight, it'll be included here, and if you make a written comment tonight, it will be included here. And we plan to organize these comments in this matrix so we know what has been commented on, to organize those comments for the city to make sure they don't miss anything that's important, and also to use this matrix to check against the draft and final plans to see what the city includes or doesn't include, how much change has been made in response to the community and the subcommittee, which has spent the last 5 years on this work. Tonight, what we want to do is to work through these comments. We're going to do it geographically. Can you shift the slide? Yeah. So we're going to do this geographically, and we've got a number of slides here. I apologize for the size of these slides, but we're doing our best. We're going to start geographically in the north. There were 5 focus areas as part of this project where the bulk of change would be focused in the UC area. And so we're going to start up here in the northwest, and we're going to read the document across as though it were text. We're going to start here. We're going to move to the other employment areas, what would be focus area 2 and the Campus Point and Town Center Drive areas. We'll move back over here to take a look at the Nobel Square area where the trolley stop is at Nobel, mostly west of the 5, but sort of at Nobel and the I-5 intersection. Then we'll look at the community core in North University City, the areas surrounding UTC, and then we'll come to South UC and deal with the questions related to South UC. On target, you could shift forward just a little bit. We'll have these land use documents, and those, I'll talk about those in a minute. Those 2 land use documents are 2 separate proposals, the city's proposal for land use, scenario A, and the subcommittee's scenario B. And then we also on the table will be any comments you might want to make about parks and recreation, and we have some planning documents related to that, and also mobility, so streets and transit, pedestrian infrastructure, and bicycle infrastructure. Okay, and so as we move geographically through, we will, any of these comments are germane: mobility, parks, land use, or anything else in those areas, but we'd like to try to organize it by those areas, just to keep it kind of focused and clear for everybody. Okay. All right, yeah, I said you may make written comments, and there are note cards on the table there. There are 5x7 note cards, and if you want to make a written comment, then feel free to make that written comment, provide it in here, and it will be entered into the record. And then we're going to do comments in pairs of 2 and 2. Subcommittee members, 2 subcommittee members can make a comment on any of these focus areas, followed by 2 community members or audience members, and then back and forth. We kind of go that way so that neither group has to wait too long to make comment. We would ask when we get to that point that you try to keep these comments to approximately 2 minutes per area, not total over the course of the meeting, but 2 minutes per area. I will keep a speakers list, and we will organize the speakers once we get to that point. How the heck are we going to do this? I'll move the microphone back and forth, but I think we're going to ask for speakers to line up over there from the audience, so the amount of movement of this single mic is limited. That's just logistics. All right, that is my that's what I have to say about tonight's meeting. The last thing I'll say is that it's damn good to see all of you. There are so many of you who I've seen in one form or another. I've seen you on a Zoom screen, and I haven't seen even some members of the subcommittee in over a year, and many of you it's been 3 years. And so it's good to see you. It's good to see you in person, and I want to take that spirit of goodwill throughout this meeting if we can. Okay. So I called for non-agenda public comment, and I've got a speakers list, and it includes Katie Rodolico, Diane Ahern, Tom Mullaney, Linda Beresford, Katarina, and Jeannie Howie. And so I'll take it in that order. Katie Rodolico, you can.
I'll take the mic.
I was going to come to you.
Okay. Yeah, we just want to try to get people organized there.
Okay, I would like to comment in response to the letter posted on the Circulate San Diego website signed by a coalition of groups, including 2 members of this UCPU subcommittee. This letter proposes that the dense Scenario 1 proposal be included in the EIR analysis. This scenario was eliminated because it proposed growth well outside the studied focus areas. The letter ignores that the survey only looked at these 5 focus areas. The letter also criticizes some of the subcommittee business members and appointed members, suggesting it is a problem that they live in the plan area. One of the repeated goals is to have people live and work in the same area. How can they criticize subcommittee members for doing that? The letter criticizes the subcommittee makeup as, paraphrasing, too white, too old, and homeowners. I'm all of those. I've shown respect for my fellow subcommittee members, even when I disagree with them. I'm not reactively NIMBY and try to consider all of the residents, including students and renters. I have worked hard to represent the members of UCCA and the broader community. I feel insulted that my voice is being discounted because I'm old, white, and own a home in the planning area. Conclusion, I would like to strongly oppose including scenario 1 in the EIR study because it dismisses 3 years of prior study by proposing changes far outside the focus areas. I also hope that the 2 subcommittee members who signed this letter would treat the fellow subcommittee members with respect rather than damning us by demographics.
I'm going to read a statement from Diane Ahern, who's running the live stream over there, but she included a comment. And that is a community notification that the construction of the City of San Diego pure water pipelines and tunnels project in University City is scheduled to begin this week, if you're not already aware of that, on Genesee Avenue from State Route 52 to Governor Drive, weather permitting. There's been a delay in the traffic control setup. Traffic control setup is now scheduled for Thursday night, March 23rd on Genesee from State Route 52 to Governor Drive from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., weather permitting. Thursday night, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., they'll be doing that setup. Pipeline construction in this section is expected to begin as early as Friday, this Friday, or next Friday, March 24th. Work hours will be Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay? Most of the pipeline construction in this section will be in the median. Two-way traffic will be maintained, and there will be no intersection closures as part of this work. Work in this section is expected to be completed in late 2023. Details on the city website can be found at phase1.purewatersd.org and also at the UCCA's website. Next on the list is Tom Mulaney.
Thank you. So I live in the Uptown community, which is near Balboa Park. It includes Mission Hills, Hillcrest, and University Heights, and so forth. And I'd like to share our experience with the community plan update and kind of warn this group to not let the same thing happen. Our community plan was redone in 2016. We spent 7 years on it. During the last month, Todd Gloria was our city councilman. They changed everything. Ultimately, we wound up with a community plan that was high density, that had no significant infrastructure planned in some areas, no building heights whatsoever. It's a mess. And I don't want to see this community become the same kind of victim. There's a new kind of craziness. You could call it housing hysteria, it's growth mania. The idea is that urban planning somehow is to just focus on the number of housing units. I work with an urban planning professor who says if Mayor Todd Gloria and this city council were running the country, we could just get rid of all urban planning programs in all the colleges, because the whole idea would just be to maximize the number of housing units. 5,000, 10,000, why not add 1 million housing units? For one thing, the demand is not there. During the last 10 years, the region's grown at less than 1%. It's been about 0.7%. So I want to mention too, complete communities. In this respect, Uptown community and University community are very similar. There's a map out there for complete communities that shows a very high floor area ratio. That lets the developer get any number of units in any height. So just as a warning of what can be done, this is a 200-foot tall project proposed now in Bankers Hill on a historic quiet street, 3rd Avenue. Okay? If they can do this to Bankers Hill, they can do it anywhere. So this is related to the Uptown, to the university plan, and I hope that the committee will look at complete communities. If university community did not add one more house to their community plan or zoning, you would still wind up being overbuilt, and that's pretty scary because of these kind of special programs. So I urge you to hang tight, and also make sure your city councilman supports you. Otherwise, yeah.
Next on the list is Linda Beresford. Hi, Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Beresford. My first comment is that I think the timeline is unrealistic. The idea that the city can take 3 months of public comment on a draft plan, synthesize that into a final plan, issue an EIR, take comments, respond to comments, finalize everything, and have a final vote in December, which is basically all of that in a 6-month time period with an August hiatus, I think is unrealistic. Second, I'm very disappointed that city staff isn't here. While I know that you all will do your best to convey our comments, the people who are writing the plan need to be here in person to hear the comments. And I think it demonstrates a real lack of leadership and care for our community that Mayor Gloria has not directed city staff to hold this meeting and attend. I forgot my third thing, I'm sorry. I might be back.
There's plenty of agenda time. Katerina.
Oh, I know what it is. Can I say it? Sorry.
And the reason why I wanted the city here is because a big chunk of our community and the community plan is now being under consideration to move to La Jolla. And while I know that that's been discussed for decades, everything I hear is that this one has legs. They're already starting the LAFCO process, they're meeting with the mayor. So what's the plan when La Jolla takes all the Biocom area and the Ralphs area west of 5? How are we possibly moving forward until that's resolved?
Well, my comment is I'm very much concerned about the trees that are in front of Sprouts area. They're beautiful, mature trees that has been living there for many years. And I would like to know what's going to happen to them. Are they just going to completely cut them off and remove them, or are they going to try to save them in some way?
May I speak?
Oh, the list is closed.
Who's next?
The list is closed for the non-agenda. There will be plenty of time for agenda comment, which we're about to take, which is
So there
almost
is,
everything.
there is more time to comment.
There is much more time to comment.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, we're about to do that.
Yes, I'm Jeannie Hoey, and I just found out that we're supposed to be doing a survey this month about Blueprint San Diego. This is all news to me. So it's almost like redundant as to, our plans and so forth. And I'm just surprised because this is coming out of the city planning. I had no idea that we're supposed to be participating in a survey.
Can you share the name and
The people that were named in here was Sochi Lutz and Todd Galloway.
take that one? Okay.
Yeah, this is news.
Okay. I'll have this up at the front, and if the people want to be involved in making a comment, they certainly can. Okay. From there, I think what we would like to do is to open the floor to comments on the agenda, which is essentially what has been proposed for land use, mobility, parks, and recreation, and do that by areas of the community, starting with the section to the north and west. All right, so we're going to start with taking comments related to this section of the community, which includes the Torrey Pines State Park, Torrey Pines City Park, the Glider Port, Black's Beach, as well as Torrey Pines Road and the Biotech and Life Sciences Cluster that's there, Scripps Hospital, et cetera, north of University of California, okay? So if people have comments that they would like to register related to that area of the plan, then feel free to raise your hand. If you're a member of the community, you can line up over there. If you're a member of the subcommittee, then you can, then I'll hand you the microphone from up here.
Andy, so just going back one slide.
Yeah.
You listed all the different categories, and now so we're supposed to speak to all of that within each focus group?
I think we're going to do it yeah, so to any of those areas, but within the focus areas, and maybe keep the conversation geographically organized. Okay?
Can you just outline the area a little bit more?
Yeah, we're going to do this generally speaking, but, sort of this area here, west of I-5, north of UCSD.
No, no.
Yeah. We could turn the lights off, but you won't be able to see us and we won't be able to see you. Or we'll be able to see you, but not vice versa.
Let me see if I can.
So,
The furthest scroll button. Yeah.
yes.
Can you give an overview of what the plan changes are for that area?
Well, that's a very good question. Yes, I could, can I?
Do you have the slide of the existing land use?
I do not.
It's on the website, Plan University, under materials, there's an existing land use
But do you
slide.
know what they're proposing?
This area is
In
being.
that area,
yeah.
very little change because of
Okay.
the crash zone and because of height restrictions.
Okay,
30-foot
I
height
support
limit,
that.
and there's no residential proposed.
So this area is proposed to remain essentially what it is, no new housing in the area, but it also to remain, there'll be some additional development related to biotech and life sciences that's in that area.
It's in the coastal zone, so it's in the 30-foot height limit that wouldn't be changed, even if they changed the other height limit. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, this is the coastal zone, the state coastal zone, as well as the city's coastal zone has a 30-foot height limit, and it is under the jurisdiction of the state coastal commission, which gives it additional
So there are
complications.
There's much less changes proposed for the other.
Let's go.
Going once? Yeah, go ahead, Jason. There you go, thank you.
Hi, I'm subcommittee member Jason Moorhead. So I work with Alexandria Real Estate Equities, and we've done the majority of the development up in Torrey Pines. As Debbie and others mentioned, there's not a tremendous amount of change that could even come in the next 30 years in Torrey Pines because there has been so much redevelopment that conforms with the height limit and other restrictions. I think that the subcommittee should speak up for alternate transportation and last mile transportation because Torrey Pines community is not well served right now by public transit. We do have MPS buses that serve the area, but the connection to the trolley needs help, so that's something that we can do. Alexandria just installed I think a lot of people are aware, a pedestrian bridge to connect two different scientific research campuses, so pedestrian mobility has been improved there, but I think that we should advocate for better micromobility and pedestrian access in Torrey Pines. No passes.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, and I would say related to that, I would make a comment, which is that I think that's a really critical part of ensuring good and safe transit there, bicycle and pedestrian. Especially, I think it's especially important along, not along Torrey Pines Road. It's what's the one that's just to the east of that runs north? Is it Science Center?
Yeah, science.
That's kind of running parallel to Torrey Pines, that the bridge connects onto, that your new bridge connects to. Science Center, right? And so is that, I mean, I think it's important. I think our planned bike network looks like it makes a stop and a turn and cuts back onto Torrey Pines, feeding bicycles onto Torrey Pines. I think that would be really useful for the city to consider that as a through bikeway. There will be private property that would have to be crossed on that, so that's a conversation that would have to be held, but I think that would be very sensible. It's a lot safer for people to move on that than to be on Torrey Pines. Are there any other comments? Yeah.
More of a question.
that area, there's, a lovely eucalyptus kind of forested area that belongs to the university. Are there any plans on the part of the university to build out that area or take down trees, or do we know how protected that area is from the university's viewpoint?
The University of California is a separate planning area in and of itself, and the city has no jurisdiction over it.
They do whatever they want.
And they do what they want, and they take their planning concerns to the state level. Sacramento's where those,
So they could potentially build housing there or whatever they decide they want to do there, right?
they could potentially do that, although I would note that yeah, oh, there she is, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, regarding the University of California, of course, our area is not included in the plan update, but we dialogue and communicate regularly with the city of San Diego, so they know about our growth plans and things. The eucalyptus area, no, that's part of the open space, and we have approximately a third of our campus is open space, which is planned to stay that way. We do have the ecological reserve also as part of it adjacent to that. So there's no plan to take those down.
Do you want to mention the long-range plan?
You mentioned that, maybe going vertical, that the university preserves that 1/3 open space.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just share with you that we're building a lot of housing. We currently have a little over 18,000 beds on the UC San Diego campus. Our student population is about 43,000. And we just had the UC Regents approve the Ridgewalk North Living and Learning neighborhood to add an additional 2,444 beds. And the whole plan with these living and learning neighborhoods is, land is scarce, as you all know, is to design and plan in a smart way. So we go higher, preserving open space. So even our buildings and things, yes, we use the footprint and we use what we have, but we provide for potentially more open space than we had with the low-rise buildings and things like that. So, yeah.
There was a comment about a 200-foot building earlier. If we kept to 30 feet for the entire, and again, I shouldn't be talking about UCSD because it's out of the plan, but if all those were brought down to 30 feet, we'd have no trees. We'd have no open space. So verticality is green. I'm an environmentalist. I'm going to lead a accredited professional, and going vertical preserves land. So I'd like to maybe challenge you all to change that mindset.
Yeah, we have a 2018 long-range development plan. I mean, it was approved by the UC Regents in 2018. Some of you might have questions when you look at the plan that we are reaching capacity in terms of our student population. We're still under what we had estimated. So if in case in your minds you're thinking that at some point in time we will do a community plan update, a long-range development plan update, but you can go and refer to the long-range development plan that was approved back in 2018, and it sets forth, similar to what the plan update is doing, it sets forth a blueprint for the campus to grow, and it's vetted for environmental impacts. So we did a full long-range development plan, EIR, and again, that was approved by the UC Regents. But in terms of the peripheral roads, part of the long-range development plan, some of it was a mitigation and some of it was the campus just taking it on by themselves instead of giving the city a certain proportion of money for improvements towards mitigation. What we did is we proposed the traffic signals, what do we call it? I forget the terminology, but the adaptive traffic signals on Regents Road, Genesee, and La Jolla Village Drive. And we've been working with the city since the approval of the plan, and hopefully we'll be able to install them soon. So maybe y'all can push it to get the city to approve it quickly.
Thank you. I would make okay, there's a couple of comments right there. Let's get those.
Thank you. I don't recall whether or not North Torrey Pines, and Jason, you may know the answer to this very quickly. North Torrey Pines Road is actually slated for some sort of change, particularly going from the one end of the mesa to the other. But it seems to me to be unrealistic to expect that that road isn't going to need to be enhanced to cover all sorts of bike lanes, et cetera, as well as handling the traffic, particularly where there's that eucalyptus divide down the middle. Do you remember, Jason?
The eucalyptus divide was recently, and I mean recently within the last decade, updated, and as far as I know, the median down North Torrey Pines will be preserved.
But is part of the plan actually changing the structure of that road?
Nope.
Okay.
And again, you're not going to see more intensity, more significant intensity on North Torrey Pines. If anything, you're going to see, hopefully, more cyclists using it, so less traffic demand.
And I would say, Joanne, if you could make that question into the form of a comment. If you believe that it should stay the same, that the median should be preserved. If that's implied in your comment and you want to make that, we'll drag down.
My question is for next zone. I don't think
It's for the next area, okay. All right, and then I would make one comment as a member of the subcommittee, and that is that I think it's important that we think about what kind of landscaping there is there. We've got a Green Street proposal and plan, and I think that this is an area that the median should be Torrey Pines. A lot of it is, and it should probably stay that way. I think I believe that we should recommend that the city, work to use that kind of native landscaping, native trees in that very, very sensitive area throughout. And I know that's a direction that a lot of the firms have been moving, but certainly the public landscape, I believe, should be native.
Was approved by a maintenance assessment district, and the maintenance assessment district completed that project 6 or 7 years ago. And the most significant thing was that they started using the recycled purple pipe water on it. It was previously irrigated without a meter from the city with potable water. So be careful about what we complain about. The median's going to stay the same. There will only be 2 lanes. If anything, we'll have more cyclists.
Yeah, okay. Is this related to this, comment related to this area? Yeah.
I just want to make a comment. So UCSD, you preserve 1/3 of your land for open space, but you look to University City to be a solution to your students. You don't have to be the largest campus in California. We're not the solution for you to maintain 1/3 of your campus as open space. You have married student housing up there. You have the tennis courts that are across the street. Honestly, I find that comment shocking.
I don't think that kind of comment's not going to be helpful. You didn't come for the generous part of the conversation.
I don't know why we're even having this meeting.
We're going to try to keep this respectful. If you would come early or on time.
Was it respectful last month? No.
We're doing this again. All right, so are there any other comments that are related to North University? Yeah, okay.
Good evening, subcommittee members. My name is Jeremy Bloom. I am the Director of Development and Partnerships at Circulate San Diego. Circulate San Diego is working to create excellent mobility choices and vibrant, healthy neighborhoods. San Diego faces a housing crisis. This community plan update has the potential to enhance the university community by creating opportunities for families of all incomes to live and work in a transit-rich neighborhood. Circulate is part of a broad coalition that is urging you to ensure that the community-preferred scenario created by the city's planning department in February 2022 is included in the environmental impact report. In February 2022, the planning department introduced 2 land use scenarios. Scenario 1 would have created a capacity for 150,000 jobs and 83,000 homes, unlocking potential for desperately needed new homes and new job opportunities. Last month, we released Making Most of the Midcoast Trolley report outlining how adding capacity for jobs and homes is essential to getting the economic, climate, and equity benefits of the $2.2 billion investment of the Midcoast Trolley. We had 3 great op-eds in the UT this morning. I hope you had a chance to read them. If you haven't, I have some copies for you. So someone just boo me? I thought we just talked about respectful. Yeah.
That's very respectful.
Out of all the proposals put forward by the city, scenario 1 does the most to maximize those benefits. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, are there any further comments related to the focus area one, the first area? It's related to this? Yes. Okay, yeah.
My name is Susan Nelson. I was born in University City and raised here. I graduated from University City High School in 1987. It is really breaking my heart to see what's happening and the division. I could never afford to live here after I graduated. I wasn't allowed to attend. I was denied entry to UCSD because I was white, even though I was raised in a mixed race family. So seeing all these divisions was very upsetting to me because this is my home. And this community has always been welcoming towards UCSD. I attended preschool on the campus. This community has been generous. We've allowed a lot of density. We're not the NIMBYs that you guys are saying. I'm mixed race. I'm Hawaiian, I'm Chinese, and I'm English. And I was adopted with an Asian mother. And it appalls me to hear this NIMBY, this white NIMBY accusation all of the time. And we really need to work on that a little bit. I think you guys will be more successful if you lighten up on that.
Thank you. We're going to move to the next focused area, which is to the north of the community core, to this section right here, which is just east of I-5, the section around Campus Point Drive, the tech parks on Campus Point and Town Center Drive, north of Executive. And if you do have any comments that kind of slip over the boundary, that's fine. Okay, but this is the area around Town Center Drive and Campus Point Drive, Genesee, the Preuss School, kind of at the edge of the east campus of UCSD. Are there comments from the subcommittee? I'd take 2 comments, and then I would take hands from the community. Yeah. What's that? A quick overview. The recommendations for this area in both of these plans are largely that both of these tech parks will remain fundamentally for, here they are, here's Campus Point Drive and here's Town Center Drive, will remain fundamentally for scientific research, remain prime real estate or prime industrial real estate, with some increases in density appropriate there up to the limits that are created by the overflight of the airport. There's a accident potential zone there that limits density and height to a certain extent, but the idea in the community plan would be to remove, in both of these versions, would be to increase the commercial density there, as well as to provide potentially the possibility for some increased construction of housing along Genesee to the east of the trolley, north of Eastgate Mall. There are apartments and condominiums there. The apartments could be redeveloped to be slightly more dense. And there's also a possibility for the use of some of the property that's on Campus Point Drive, adjacent to Genesee, across Genesee from Scripps Hospital, to be used as mixed use, both commercial and residential, potentially.
Which Scripps Hospital?
Which Scripps Hospital? Scripps Memorial Hospital. Yeah. Debbie Knight has her hand up.
Yes, this is really a sort of process and clarification question. So when I read the spreadsheet of comments, they were only on scenario B, or the old scenario 2. And I'm concerned that all of the comments, if they're all classified as only responding to scenario B, the city is going to choose scenario A. They're going to choose their preferred scenario. Mm-hmm. And I believe our comments, all the comments that have already been made, even if they were made about scenario B, should apply to both of the scenarios, because otherwise they're going to dismiss. They're not going to choose scenario B because it will be the alternative in the EIR. And thereby, all of the comments on scenario B will go out the window. So that I have comments in there that apply to scenario B, but they apply even more so to scenario A. So I just need that to be really clear, and I think people should maybe say in their comments, it applies to either scenario. Because, that just struck me when I saw that spreadsheet, like, we're just being relegated to scenario B. That doesn't make, that's not gonna work. Yeah.
A quick comment for clarification. I think we've got a spreadsheet which is exclusive of those comments. We asked for a spreadsheet that included both of the jam boards, if you remember the October meeting, which had comments on both of those. And I believe, now that you've pointed it out, that we may have only received comments for this spreadsheet from the one document.
My scenario, I commented on B, but it actually applies even more so to scenario A because it's concerned about density, extreme density right near MSCP habitat. And so it's lesser in B than it is in A, but my comment is even more so for scenario A than for scenario B. So I don't know how to weigh that for the city, but.
None of the comments that we've taken tonight have been so far focused on either one of those scenarios.
But I think you should work with the city.
Can we amend the spreadsheet so that it doesn't?
Oh yeah, this is a dynamic process. This spreadsheet will be updated. We're going to make sure we got this spreadsheet without sufficient time to add in all of those other comments. We will do that.
Right.
Chris and I will make sure that happens so that comments that have been taken from minutes, comments that were collected as part of the jam board in the October and November meetings will be included here so that we can all see what those comments were and we can focus on those things that haven't been said. We're very aware of the things that have been said.
I'm just not sure the process when you're going to still segregate them by A and B, because you know what I'm saying? It's like.
I hear you.
Yeah, because I don't want my comment on B to be, and then it's even
Well,
worse
as you make
A.
comments tonight, make comments on
Okay,
on on either a scenario that you're interested in making that comment on or on whichever piece of the plan
okay.
you're interested in. Is another, Jason?
So comment specifically to Campus Point area. And Andy, I think you said there are 2 comments from the subcommittee allowed on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And then we'll do 2 from there and then 2 back.
Okay. Seems like there should be, the subcommittee members should share all that they have feelings on. But anyway, okay. So I didn't sign any letter advocating for support on the EIR for scenario 1, not scenario A, but we keep saying 1 and A and 2 and B. But I would like to, as a subcommittee member, share my voice to support scenario 1 in the EIR, which would allow for the maximum intensity in this area. The maximum intensity won't be built. I want the EIR to support it to ensure that if it was, it would be acceptable. Also, just kind of changing the mindsets to the development of the life sciences community. Similar to what I said about going vertical, my colleagues showed up, and I really don't have the intelligence to speak to this now. I had a group of people who showed up last month when all went awry in this meeting, but we're working hand in hand with UCSD's robotics and design labs to implement autonomous shuttles from Campus Point to the coaster and also to the Blue Line. So maybe just close your eyes and think about a future where also Alexandria is building a net zero building, the most sustainable building ever built in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Close your eyes and think about a future when we can build net zero lab buildings and the product of which these buildings and these scientists who work in them are all going to benefit you. So just advocating for making Campus Point Drive probably, what does Cambridge call it, the most intelligent square mile on the planet? Well, let's be more intelligent than all of them.
Thank you. Two comments from the audience. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nancy Powell, and I would like to, I'm hearing all these comments about the last meeting being out of control. It was a little exciting there, and I admit I was part of it. Here's the thing. The community has not had a say in all of this. We all feel like it's being rammed down our throats. We are angry. That explains the behavior at that meeting. We're not getting the answers we want. We ask the questions, we don't get the answers. You're dealing with a community that is losing its patience.
Hi, my name is Lisa Heikoff. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself before. So I had a question, and perhaps the Alexandria gentleman is the one to answer that, and that is, I'm glad we have LEED, certified buildings, and that we're being intelligent about this development. I'm totally for that. But I wonder about some of the amenities that the companies put in place for their employees, and given that we don't have new parklands and we don't have new recreation facilities planned for these areas, is there any sharing concept in terms of on weekends when people aren't working, can basketball courts or volleyball courts or other things that these companies are developing for their employees, can they be in some way shared with the community so that we have more space for kids and people to spread out and have recreation? So that's my question.
Did you want to speak to that, Jason?
I won't answer, but I'll comment. Yeah, so one thing that Alexandria did was we purchased land on Callan Road and opted not to develop any of it. And we transferred the ADTs from that. I'm not going to educate everyone. Again, we've been doing this for 3.5 years, so we're not all here. Yeah, average daily trips, which are going to change to vehicle miles traveled. Anyway, we've purchased land to leave it alone and transfer the density to other areas. There was another project that didn't buy any or transfer any, but I won't get into that. I think Debbie spoke best at the last meeting about the lack of parks in the entire plan update. And I agree. I think that there should be more space for public parks. It's really hard to take private development and say, we're building space that a tenant that may have a lot of intellectual property concerns and open up the space for public use, like the basketball courts. There's liability issues. Someone breaks their ankle. We're a private. We're actually a publicly traded developer, but that's hard to do. Is to open up all of our own space to the public. But I think that together the subcommittee should push hard for more parks in the community, public parks, yeah.
We tried.
Thank you. And you asked a question, but I would just suggest that if you have questions, that's one thing. But you can also frame those questions in the form of a comment. If your comment was, it would be great that if the city pursued relationships with private landowners to maximize the use of parks in the community, that would be a comment there'd be a comment and not a question, and one that would need to be answered, or it would be a suggestion. I see you. Is there anyone else in the subcommittee who would like to speak to this area? Debbie Knight.
All right, I've made this comment before, and so this particularly does apply to Campus Point. So when there is high density adjacent to the MSCP, it has significant negative impacts on the biodiversity and the habitat. And I think that's my big concern about Campus Point, is that to date, what Alexandria has done has been very respectful of its adjacency to the MSCP. And so I would say for that area, that is not an area I would like to see, great height for that reason. And you can't undo that damage. It's the lights, the noise, everything. So I would advocate that for the higher density is not close to, adjacent to MSCP lands. And MSCP lands are something that, when you talk about the kind of green, the green net zero and green building, adjacency to the MHPA is something that I know Alexandria has to date had a good, really honored, but that would undo that commitment. And I think that that's one of those things that has to be built into our community plan, is that there are limits in terms of where that higher density should go. And I advocate very strongly for it not being that close to the MHPA. But for other areas, I would agree with Jason.
Tiny comment, Debbie?
Yeah.
If we go back more than a decade and look at when Kyocera used to manufacture there, the amount of permeable surface and the amount of stormwater runoff, we retain everything now, everything on site. So, I mean, I think that, the way that building code and our ambitions play out, I think that, with even more density, we can be much more sustainable than what was.
All right, I've got one comment from the subcommittee, and then I'll take two from the floor, which I saw, and then I think we should move on because we've got 3 additional areas to talk about. And that would be a comment that I don't know if it was received the last time, but I think it's really important that we ask the city to consider opening a new, at the very least, exit way from the Campus Point area onto Genesee, probably at this area here. If density will increase there, including especially if there's housing that may be developed there, I think it would be critical to open up the access where the Genesee and Campus Point Court go to grade. There's some private property that's crossed there. You guys may own it now. I'm not sure who owns it, but the city should pursue opening that extra area so that there's a second way to get out of Campus Point. It's a long drive, it's a long cul-de-sac, it's adjacent to a canyon. This would provide a second egress for sure if there were emergency that needed to take place. It would also take some of the pressure off of the intersection at Campus Point and Genesee. So
Andy, can I support your comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Just simply by, so you requested a second egress from Campus Point,
Yeah.
and we also support that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it would cut through Alexandria's property.
Okay.
So we'd support it and we'd build it.
Okay.
Yeah, and also to that point, there will be a short information item on the UCPG agenda for April on this particular subject, because that goes well with the plan discussion draft presentation for this area.
All right, there were 2 comments out from the audience. I'll take those 2, and then we'll move to the area around Nobel Square. And so you had an opportunity to talk. Let me get you back onto the floor in the next.
Hello, I'm Electra's partner, and I was wondering regarding the Campus Point area, how are we going to mitigate the traffic there? And I was also wondering, are they going to open up Genesee to, especially if you're going to maximize that area? I'm on Campus Point now, so that's why I have a concern. Thank you.
Thank you. So the comment is to be very careful about maximizing intensity because of its impacts on traffic, which is challenging today.
Correct. And
Okay.
if you were going to open Genesee anymore?
Genesee is not planned to be widened at that point. There is a proposal here to increase protected bike lanes to increase the possibility of people biking along there safely to work. And a lot of people do that today. And I would invite everybody just to take a look at the planuniversity.org, the website for this. All of the materials going back to 4 years are there, but especially at the February meeting, a mobility plan was presented, and it has all of the various networks for pedestrian, for bikes, for transit, et cetera, and really take an opportunity to dig in. I know that's difficult at this scale to do that. All right, I would like to move us to conversation about this area, La Jolla Square. Our third focus area was in this intersection at Nobel and La Jolla Village Drive on both sides of Interstate 5. all right, just south of the university. And I would take 2 comments from the subcommittee, if there are some. Aiden, and then Kate.
Hello, my name is Aiden. I'm the student delegate on this subcommittee. And I wanted to, first I know we were talking very briefly about UCSD, and I know that UCSD is in the process of building about 5,700 beds with 3 different housing projects. Because there's a lot of construction on campus. So it's underway. I know they have more plans as well. And I think that's a good thing for students, and a lot of students are pushing the university to continue to provide housing. But we also know that the entire community affects all of us as residents, as renters, as students, as working professionals. We're all a part of the community, right? And so I think that for this specific area, the Nobel Square, the La Jolla Village Squares, the shops at La Jolla Village, right? There's like 2 different ones. One of the first things that I noticed when I came here and I went to go get groceries is how expansive that parking lot is, right? And how difficult it is to walk across and to get to the different shops that are on the opposite ends of the different squares and whatnot. And so I was just thinking, I mean, imagine how incredibly awesome it would be if that area was mixed-use development. This is right next to the trolley stop. So we had housing, we had commercial development, we had the ability to hop on the trolley and take us around University City, at least North University City, and all the way down into downtown and all the way to the border if we wanted to. That would be an amazing place for us to have a higher density, but also, like I said, mixed use and more opportunities, more housing opportunities that would provide people the opportunity to live in this area, to get around this area, hopefully to use the trolley more and less cars so that there would be less traffic in general. I think it is a wonderful idea to focus development and mixed-use development in that area. So that would be my comment. Thank you.
Katie, and then we'll take 2 from the audience.
I actually agree with Aiden. I think that this is an area that it's got the trolley, it's got a lot that could go for it. Right now, the biggest detractor to it is the 30-foot height limit, and I've said many times in these meetings that if there were a way to eliminate that 30-foot height limit, because it doesn't have ocean views, it's down behind a ridge, which the 30-foot height limit was supposed to protect the view corridors. I think it's perfect for mixed use and more increased density, and as was said about UCSD, by building taller, you can get more open space that's not just parking. If you do underground parking, you could have a much more pleasant area than trying to navigate the parking lot outside Trader Joe's.
Linda?
I also support some increased density, particularly within a quarter mile of the trolley stations. I think that all properties within a quarter mile of a trolley station, if they get redeveloped, should have some sort of housing component. I don't think that, if there are particularly biotech developments that are within a quarter mile of a trolley, I think they should seriously consider having to include housing in some of their areas. But I also think that they need to have parking, because even though I know we really hope that everyone's going to use public transportation, I don't think that's realistic. And I also think that they have to be zoned in a way that requires community serving retail, like grocery stores, pharmacies, and those kinds of things, to be retained in the future mixed use development. So that's a lot of caveats, but I would support something particularly quarter mile to a trolley station. I support increased density there, but we do need to have some parking and keep the community serving retail.
Other members of the audience would like to comment about this area? I'll turn to Joanne Selleck. We're going to stay here for a few minutes.
Okay, the increased height limit is going to become an issue, and I've said this before, I'm not sure in this meeting or the UCPG meeting, but it seems to me that the best reason that we have for increasing the height limit is for residential and combined with retail. And yes, we need grocery stores there on both sides of Nobel, there's no question about it, but I'm certainly in favor of increasing the height limit for residential and retail. The other component, and I don't know that we're supposed to be adding things at this point, that I continue to believe is essential to reduce the number of cars moving in that area at a very hazardous intersection is to actually create a pedestrian bridge from the Ralph side over to the Whole Foods side, because it will be heavily used and people don't have to move their cars.
Thank you.
And building on that, yes, the bridge is a need, and also if maybe the university can also subsidize some of the housing that we'll be building for the students, so then it will really make the solution of having the students living on campus, that will be also fantastic.
Thank you. I would add to this point, since we're talking about mixed use, that I think one of the features that's superior in the scenario B to scenario A is that housing and commerce is specified to be preserved, and housing is also allowed, so that the mixed use in a community village development would be mixed use that was focused on retail, the community and regional serving retail, and on housing, and not use the generalized mixed use zoning in scenario A, because that allows for competition with other kinds of commercial. And the most competitive kind of commercial real estate development in this area is for biotech or for high tech. And I think the last thing that we want is to take an area that is ideal for housing, and where I believe, and I think many people here believe, housing belongs at higher density than it is now, with a lifted height limit, or at least certainly at a much higher level than it is now. But the worst thing that I could imagine here is that we lift the height limit, increase density, and then both commerce and housing are pushed out by the most competitive economic use in our area, which is for scientific research and biotech. So I think that what we should do in both of these scenarios is to have either an overlay or a specific zoning selected for this site that would preserve it for housing and for retail. And of course, if we're going to add many, many more housing units, we're going to need many, many more places for people in those housing units to shop. And if we allow those places for people to shop to be redeveloped for other uses, I think that would be a bad idea. I think this is what planning is for. There are many places for increased intensity in biotech and life sciences and high tech, and I think we should support those too. But I think this isn't one of those places.
And I have a quick overall comment on scenario A and scenario B. It would be helpful if we had estimates of the additional allowed units in both of these scenarios that came from the city. I've seen numbers thrown around for scenario A at least, but when we see these, it's hard to really assess how we feel about them when we don't have those numbers. And I get that it's very difficult to do precisely, but it seems like we should have some ballpark figures.
I'll give you those numbers in a minute. I've got them written down.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments from the audience? Yes.
Yeah, what bothers me about all these scenarios that I hear about is that it seems like they want to take away the shopping, the grocery stores. And right now, I mean, we go to Bonds, which is La Jolla Colony Plaza, and they're mostly out of stuff. There's not enough shopping for what's already there, let alone what's being proposed. And the other problem with taking away the parking lot is that, families need to get a lot of groceries for, 4 people in the family. You can't just hop on a bus and take home your groceries. So I think there's an element here which is unrealistic. We need to have more shopping, and we need to have parking for that shopping.
Comment heard. Thank you.
Hi, Keith Genesee. I actually have an opposing view, and I agree with the previous comments that this area is prone to very poor traffic flow, right? So anybody coming from the north on I-5 has to go on La Jolla Village Drive and via La Jolla to get into the center at all. And any increased density, while everyone wants everyone to ride the trolley. It's just not going to happen. People are going to be driving, they're going to need parking, and at high times of the day, that intersection via La Jolla and La Jolla Village is ridiculous. And I'm actually a bike rider. I live in South UC, and I work at UCSD, and I fear for my life riding down Nobel Drive pretty regularly. It's a very busy street. There's not room for bike lanes. There's not proper bike lanes. It's just bad. It's a bad traffic spot. And so for that reason, I oppose higher density. Thanks.
Yeah, a couple things. First, I agree with the gentleman that if they could add to these maps and put them on the city's website, the estimated number of housing units and the estimated number of jobs, which they always had in their previous scenario 1 and 2, that would be very helpful. That's kind of just a big view. The other thing is, I agree that there should be a lot more housing or housing focus over there. However, it also means that we definitely need some parkland, and not like a little mini park with, you know, a couple of swings attached to a housing unit that those people can go out to. But you're going to have a lot of young people there. You're going to have a lot of people who need parkland. And so somehow there has to be a requirement for substantial parkland there, enough that somebody can kick a ball around or do something, because it's not a 10-minute or even a 15-minute walk to any other parks there. So that's, and I completely agree with Keith. The people who complain most about that are you and Isabel, the people who ride bikes about Via La Jolla and La Jolla Village Drive intersection. It is really deadly. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll give this to Joanne, and then we're going to move on.
So Keith, to solve the problem, the other thing I put in as a comment is to remove all the parking on Nobel west of Genesee for safety reasons.
But the bridge would have to be widened as well, right? So the bridge over the 5 is the restriction.
Seems like subcommittee members aren't getting equal share. The folks that are complaining about how bad traffic and cycling is today, again, we need to think about, let's not complain about how dangerous it is. I know I was nearly killed about a decade ago on Miramar Road. I fractured my skull. Let's ask for separate protected bike lanes. Let's think about 30 years into the future. Let's not talk about opposing density and intensity today because it's not safe, but let's say, make it contingent, make a comment that the density is contingent on protected bike lanes. It can be absolutely safe and also healthy. So again, think further down the road. Don't think of what it was to get here today. Think of what it's going to be, not for you, but for the next generation.
Hi, I would like to echo that. My name is Melanie, and I work at Biocom California. We're a trade association for life sciences. We actually authored the letter that you were speaking about including scenario 1 in the economic impact report. So I would like to share, again, as I have in the 4.5 years that we've been doing this, according to the community atlas of this community, so that's census data related to the UC community plan, 79% of the people who live in this community are under the age of 50. So I would just encourage you to look around the room and think about the next generation and who's going to live in this community. I live in Claremont in a single family home, and I would love multifamily homes to be the entire presence of my community in Claremont, personally. 53% of this community are non-white. So again, look around the room. 68% of the household income is under $100,000 a year. I don't always come to these meetings because I know that the people in this room don't agree with me. This person right here just called me a bitch and told me to stop talking. So I don't feel comfortable at these meetings, but I will continue to attend because the people in this room are not representative of the demographics of this community, and the people who are not here deserve a voice as well. I went to UC San Diego. I would have loved to live in this community after graduation, but because of the people in this room, it's not affordable. And I would love, I would love to see, you guys don't support the students living here, you just don't. And you should accept that. It is your job. It's very sad. It's very sad as a member of this community to see people climb up the ladder and want to cut it off behind them. So thank you.
She's wrong.
You're going to call me a bitch.
I heard you talking when everybody's trying to listen.
Thank you, all right, hey.
And he called me a bitch. So
Hey, I'm gonna ask you guys just to let it go. Let this go, all right? This does not have to be engaged. We do not have to engage each other in such a way. All right, so this meeting is gonna have to end at 8 o'clock, so we need to move. So yes, we need to move. Is this a comment related to this particular geographic area?
It's to the representatives here. I just think that younger people who are like working their lives don't have the context or the time to focus on it. The people who have lived in this community, developed this community, live here, shouldn't be invalidated. It's not like all of a sudden our lives are erased or we're like imposing anything on anyone else. Took a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment. It was not easy to live here. It's not like I'm judging my neighbors. Anyone can live here. I know it's expensive, but the people who are here are the people who have the time to pay attention and care and voice the representation of their neighbors.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to make an executive decision here. We've got 5 focus areas, but I know many of you have come to address the 5th focus area. If we talk about the community core, I think we won't have an opportunity to have many voices give them an opportunity to speak. So I want to move there. There are going to be 3 opportunities to talk about the community core. If you want to talk about the community core bill or anyone else, so feel free, we can make comments about Area 4 or Area 5, which is the UTC area or the South UC area.
We're always cut out of, so
I'm sorry about that.
No, let's get to 4.
I'll let you speak first as we go to that. But I think we'll move there, and that will give us at least 20 minutes to get voices onto the floor and comments taken. And there are all of these written comment cards that are available as well. So the question was asked, scenario A proposes 30,000 dwelling units over the next 30 years, potential for 30,000 dwelling units and 70,000 jobs over the next 30 years. Additional. Scenario B proposes additional 22,000 at a maximum dwelling units per acre of 145 units per acre, which is the density of the East Campus at UCSD, approximately 8-story apartment blocks with significant open space around them, and 22,000 units and 55,000 jobs. So those are numbers. And then let me open up the conversation to area 4 and 5, the UTC core. And I see Bill, and I see you, and then we'll.
Hi, my name is Bill Beck. I'm the president of UC, I'm a member of UCCA and I represent the South. The North, I'm getting a little nervous, sorry. Okay, my concern is, every time we have these meetings, I bet you if I asked how many people are here from the North, and you raise your hand, there may be a few of us. Roger, myself, a couple of others, but for the most part, you're all from the South, and that's fine. But we are one university city. And most of the time, when I hear people talk about these plans, no, can't do it here, let's build it over there in the North, build it over there in the North. In the North, build it. We have it. We have the room, we have the ability. But support us like you want to be supported. You don't want it in this place or that place. Build it over there. That's wrong. That's the worst thing you're doing. You're splitting us in half. And that's not right. You know, we have a great university. You say we need to support the students. I had 2 sons, and I supported them, and nobody's helped me do it. You know, I think it's right. That's why you have loans and everything else that can do it. Not saying that you shouldn't build these homes. We should build them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the people in the South, you have to join in and have some of it there too. It can't all be in the North. That's the main problem. So please, consider us one university city, not 2, not the North and the South. We're divided by a canyon. You don't want to build a bridge across it. That's okay too. But we got to be one. If we're not, we're divided and we're going to lose, and the city will do whatever they want. Thanks, Andy.
I'll take a couple more comments from right here.
Thank you. Andy, I'd like to say that you have done a phenomenal job navigating this really difficult process. Thank you. My name is Tana Becker-Verano, and my husband and I have owned a home in South UC since 1996, and we raised our 2 daughters here, and my husband even went to Curie Elementary. And I think it's important in that context to share that both of us support thoughtful rezoning to mixed use of the Sprouts and Vaughn Shopping Center, and also thoughtful increased density in North UC. The era of single-family homes is just not sustainable anymore. And I know it's been said before, but we don't have a housing crisis, we have an affordable housing crisis. And as we eventually move forward and pick a scenario, I would like to see all of us come together and prioritize equitable development, affordable development. And I know I don't have a whole lot of time to say a lot of things here. I have a letter to give you, but I'm going to go bold, and I'm going to demand 20% inclusionary housing. And there are many ways that we can achieve this. I know people are going to tell you it doesn't pencil out. Well, maybe the city needs to enter into a private-public partnership and we do some municipal housing. There are ways to do this. Transportation. I would love to see an electric shuttle, mini shuttles going back and forth on Governor Drive, dropping people off at Sprouts and Vaughn's and the library and the Stanley Rec Center, and going north-south on Genesee, dropping people in South UC and North UC at the trolley platform and the other retail shops there. And also tenant protections. A lot of us are homeowners here, but not everybody is. There are very few quote-unquote affordable rental units in mostly North UC. And I think it's really important for all of us to think about the tenants who will be displaced in redevelopment and have tenant protections that guarantee them some sort of relocation fee or reimbursement, and the right to return once those developments are done at the rent that they're currently paying. So I think, you laugh, but it's not just about us. It really is about the future. None of the children that we raised in UC can afford to live in our neighborhood anymore. It's not about us, it's about the future. And most of this will not be developed in some of our lifetimes, but we need to plan for the future. And I think it's important that you know that you've got neighbors at UC that do support this, and the students at UCSD. We want to uplift their voices. It's important that they know that they have a voice at the table, and they should have a say in the land use of this area. So thank you.
I'll take a couple more comments from out here.
Hi, my name is Judy Murphy, and I have lived in University City since July of 1971. My biggest concern that concerns the entire scenario is the school situation, specifically elementary school. Doyle, which is in the north side of UC, is already over capacity. There's many parents from that area that are already driving to Spreckles daily, creating a lot of traffic on Governor Drive, along with the other trips they may be taking for their students that go to Stanley. My concern is, with all this increased housing, where are you going to put another elementary school? And what are we going to do to accommodate all the extra traffic we already have on Governor Drive when the mobility study wants to eliminate a lane in each direction on Governor Drive for a designated bike lane?
Thank you, and I'll encourage you, everyone, if you have a question, put it in the form of a question, that's one thing, but if you put it in the form of a comment, then that's more declarative, and it will have to be answered.
Along with what I previously said, it concerns me very much that the planning department is not communicating with San Diego Unified, as their representative clearly stated to us last month in a meeting.
So I'll summarize that recommendation, which is that the city coordinate carefully, openly, transparently, and robustly with the city schools to make sure that before scenarios with significant increases of housing are improved or are approved, that there is a plan in place to make sure that there are schools for the people who will live in those houses.
Thank you.
Okay. There we go.
Good evening, my name is Ruth Bush. I'm a resident of South UC, as I have been for a number of years. I'm also a graduate of UCSD who did live here. My comment, or my concern and comment, is that one of the numbers that is being thrown around when we're looking at both the Sprouts and the Vaughn's University City redevelopment is that they are, quote, both within a mile of the trolley. And if we are crows, that is true. But if we are walking, it is actually a 2.1 mile walk from the Sprouts Shopping Center, again, a potential site of a lot of this redevelopment. So it would be a 4 mile round trip walk to the trolley for residents who are living there. So as long as we certainly need to take into account mass transportation, we need to take into account the trolley's role in this, but we also need to be careful that we are using the correct math. Thank you.
I'll take Andrew.
And then I'll go back to the secretary. So this comment specifically about parks, which we probably won't have time to get to, but so in May 2022, the city planning staff described metrics for determining whether an area had enough parks. This area was woefully underparked. In other words, there were a lot of people with not enough recreational spaces. More worrisome is that there's currently no realistic plan to address this. So my comment and request of the city is that the city identify land and funds to address this park's deficiency. The city conduct a thorough study of how to meet this planning or this glaring demand for parks and present the results to all of us and the subcommittee as soon as possible. Also, that the city mandate that new developments build parks on site and that they're not allowed to pay fees to avoid doing this. I also recommend that the plan update committee not vote on the plan until this really important point has been addressed thoroughly and thoughtfully. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to highlight some significant process issues that concern all of us greatly. Judy just mentioned that it was alleged on this very stage that the planning committee was, the planning department was coordinating closely with the school system, and Judy just pointed out that that has not been the case. Ruth just pointed out that the two shopping centers were designated as 1 mile, within 1 mile of the trolley when it's a 4.2 mile round trip. The city planning department at an earlier meeting of this group asserted that AB 9 required all of these changes for University City. And that was clearly walked back later when it was proven not to be true. There are so many misrepresentations of fact and reality that have come out of the city planning department. And you add on top of that, that the comments from the October meeting that you referred to, Andy, have not been updated into the spreadsheets as of March of the next year. To be disenfranchised, not heard, not listened to, given absolute misinformation, bordering on disinformation, is not disagreeing while being agreeable. That's disagreeing while misrepresenting the truth and ignoring the feedback from this community. So the anger that manifests periodically is not an attitudinal problem. It's a rejection of the opacity and the disinformation and the neglect of the city, of the people who have lived in this community, myself for 42 years, 3 generations today. Our anger is justified. It is not a difference of opinion. It is the rejection of disinformation, opacity, and lack of transparency.
I haven't been ignoring, I'll give you back. Sorry about that. Doing my best. Dinesh.
One of the concerns that we hear a lot is parks. Andrew was just talking about this, and so this is a comment that really applies to everything that's in purple. I think I would urge the city to do plan overlay zones requiring that those property owners build public use parks on site when they redevelop that land. We were previously told by city staff that overlay zones could not be part of the plan, but if you look at the new Mira Mesa plan, it has overlay zones. So I'd like to see some possibility for doing that. And I've seen, specifically, there's one place in the Mira Mesa plan where they got 10 stories instead of 5 in order to do parks. So I think that would be a great way to do that.
I'm Roger, UCPG, 40-year resident. I want to talk about affordability for a little bit. You can see up here these violet zones. Scenario B has taken the intensity of the shading on that area from west of Genesee and between Decorah and Nobel and lightened it up a little bit so there's less density on scenario B. And this picks up on some comments that a number of us had, that we want to preserve existing stock of affordable housing. So if we look at affordable housing, this is some of the most affordable housing in the area. And one of the things that's going to happen is these buildings are old. There's inevitably going to be pressure to redo this. So one of the things that we can do is envision how we could take that pressure and turn it into something really inspiring. My thought is that right across the street we've got Costa Verde, and Costa Verde is going to reinvent itself. If we were to think of a walkable community that would embody and integrate a number of things that we really want. We want to have services that are local that we can go to. People have mentioned grocery stores and post offices and cleaners and things like this. We want to have those available and walkable. If we have walkability, then we have some edge on climate change goals. If we use, as Jason was saying, if we go up, then we can reduce the footprint. We reduce the footprint, we have more accessible land. So let's say we take all those 2-story buildings, and in those quadrangles with those 2-story buildings, there's a lot of parking space. And we say we're going to preserve affordability. We're going to have the first, say, 2 stories of those affordable, of those units, those high-rise units, as affordable, so we don't reduce the number of affordability. And we go up, and then we have additional housing. We're close to the trolley, we're close to transit. If we consider this an eco district, we can integrate the things that we want in terms of not only open space, but environmentally friendly infrastructure. We can have green buildings, net carbon zero. We can have shuttles back and forth. We can put the parking underground. There's a lot we can do if we think big. That concept of eco district is important. I've introduced it to the UCPG, and I've talked about biophilic principle, which means for life, adjusting our cities so that they're redesigned to provide accessibility to nature and to preserve the environment and to include human beings in that environment. If you want more, and you're not connected to me by email, my name is Roger Kavanaugh. I'm vice chair of the UCPG. You can email Chris and you get my email. I'll send you the information. But I think it's time to think big and to think in terms of districts. Jason, you made some really interesting points. I would invite you and Alexandria to really think about could we integrate something here? Could we have some housing and some green space? Could we make Costa Verde really a showpiece? There are federal and state funds for affordable housing. We can go for a grant, we can put together a proposal here that's really groundbreaking, that models what we want for our community. It doesn't have to be plop a high-rise here or a high-rise there, and what the heck, who knows what it's going to look like. We can think district-wide, and we can imagine a future that's much better. Quick comment for UCSD. I would support 100% UCSD's expansion if they take the offer up from the City of Chula Vista. Chula Vista is offering 400 acres plus for a satellite campus. Love to see that happen. It would decrease the pressure on students and this community for that kind of housing.
All right, we have 3 minutes in this room. I'm going to pledge to you all, there's a lot of comments here. I'll stand in that parking lot with Chris taking notes for as long as anybody wants to stand there. I'm assuming that it's not pouring rain, but in any event, I pledge that to you to make sure that people get heard. I've got a voice here. I see Linda over there, and I'll give it to you guys. If you can do it in a minute, that'd be great. That'd get
My main reason for coming today is even though we have 79% people under 50, the folks who built this community and moved here when General Dynamics was the business, they're retired. More than anything, what I want to see for the elderly and those who are retiring in this community, we need our urgent care, we need doctors, we need pharmacies. Any community needs those, and even during the pandemic, that urgent care provided critical care when our own doctors and hospitals shut down. So more than anything, that's what I want to see for the community that I grew up in, and just a little respect for, everyone did really work hard. And so I just please respect that.
I live in South UC, and my major concern is secure, safety for our community, because there's only one street that goes from one side to the other. It doesn't even go all the way through. So I live right in the middle of 3 elementary schools. There's no public support for busing kids in and out. It's all done by automobile and then UC High. And if we narrow the lane, which I'm not opposed to narrowing the lane and producing bike lanes, but it's going to be like sort of one lane in each direction. So if there's an emergency, like that fire that came down from Julian and crossed down all the way through Claremont Mesa, if there's a fire, people are going to be getting in their cars and driving to school, parking in the street to try and pull their kids out of those schools. Traffic is going to be totally blocked. There'll be no ability for emergency vehicles to come through here. So if we put up, all these little dwelling units in people's yards and don't provide housing for them, there are going to be a lot more cars. My street is already full, even though we have driveways. I don't know how people are going to get visitors to their house, how we're going to have holidays.
I'll summarize several comments. One being that any redevelopment in South University City of the 2 shopping plazas must preserve commercial retail space in those places.
Yes.
And also, I know there are many concerns in the community, which we have heard about the proposal to reduce the number of lanes on Genesee or in Governor. And if that's done, that must be done in a very, very thoughtful and careful way, with the planners having clearly taken a look at what happens before and after school.
And we're buttresses by 2 canyons. There's no way to go north and south.
Let me give Linda the
Okay,
floor.
Linda Bernstein, and I really want to, I really hope that the subgroup will have listened to the community, and that the scenario B will be the scenario that you work with. The city preferred, every time we hear that the city, it makes all our voices not heard. If you're saying that the city preferred is what they're going to vote for, Tammy, it's about us. You said it's not about us, it's about us. Everyone who's come here tonight, it's all about us. It's about, we have every right to, be heard, and that we're We hope that we are heard in community preferred. And final thing is that I hope with Bonds and Sprouts, when you're talking about mixed use, that you keep the zoning. It's really important. There are houses below Sprouts. They will be severely impacted if you go above the 30-foot height limit. And with Bonds keeping the 50 feet, I believe, which, that's very different to the vertical that you're talking about, Jason, which is in North UC, where you don't have houses next door and views aren't impacted. We don't have to make, people miserable around them.
Thank you very much. All right, I regret that the city space, or that the school space closes at 8 o'clock, and that Javier, the custodian, needs to begin to close this up. I will wait outside and take comments. If you have comments on comment cards, please bring those to the front, and we will incorporate those as part of the process.